Caution, this video contains my real unfiltered views. If you or a loved one can't handle other people's opinions, you may want to stop viewing now. Just remember to like and subscribe before you leave. So there's a ton of talk these days about changes that Blizzard needs to make to the classic versions of the game, and I thought I'd share my honest thoughts on these community suggested changes and tear them apart one at a time, even though I might not agree with the majority of people. So let's get started. The content is too hard. Many people are calling for the nerfing of raids or the outright removal of hard modes from Ulduar or pre-nerf content from being released in the future. And I couldn't disagree with this more. I think they should actually remove the normal modes. I don't even know why they exist. They just kind of bait you into wasting your lockout on them despite them giving ridiculously horrible loot. The normal modes were really the first step towards the creation of the dreaded LFR that still poisons the game to this very day. The raids are supposed to be a challenge, and removing that challenge will just have the community complain that it's too easy like we all did in Nex. And the absurdly low Algalon kill statistics that people keep referencing are not even remotely accurate. They are looking at all logged raids and assuming that something like 80% of the guilds aren't killing Algalon. And while a good number of people are still finding it a challenge, these numbers are including pugs that have no business touching hard content, as well as people just soloing or duoing Flame Leviathan, and other pure just junk logs that for some reason people upload. People just need more time to keep progressing on it. Nerfing hard content just removes fun from the game, in my opinion. Your effort is supposed to feel good, not like it's a waste of time. Even if only a top percentage of players were killing Algalon and getting the best loot, I can't think of a more fair system than that, and it's a good incentive for bad players to improve, that way they can get better gear. Giving everyone everything is where the game just completely falls apart for me. Whenever you log in and look for something meaningful to do for 8 hours straight and find absolutely nothing that you could do to make an impact on your character in any possible way, besides all the cool mounts, gear, transmog, and gold that you can just purchase with real money, that's when I know it's time to either go get a second job or just outright quit. What makes Classic feel so rewarding is because you're able to log in and actually work on things and improve things in real time, which is very complicated to do in real life. WoW is supposed to be a better system to get away from how unrewarding and soul-crushing improving in real life can be. And Classic is the true, uncorrupted, raw version of that because there's so much that you can work on. There's so many things to do, and even someone like a streamer who can devote their entire life into doing everything in the game, they still struggle to get it all done. Usually when you talk to somebody who doesn't play WoW and explain all the work that you put in, they don't understand it at all and find it really strange that you get enjoyment from working on this thing. But for some of us, it's all we have, and it's beautiful that anybody can jump in the game and find that. I don't know why nobody ever talks about this. It's obvious, and the direction that we should be moving the game towards, obviously, is more effort equals more reward, not endless reward for very little effort. I mean, even being a world-first Mythic Raider in Dragonflight gets you, like an achievement and a title? People should be able to spot your character from a mile away and immediately know that you're that guy that put in all the effort to beat the game before anyone else. Sure, we as a community know it's a big deal and on Twitch and stuff, but in-game, it goes completely unnoticed. And why would anyone want their effort to go completely unnoticed? The game being hard is also what makes it worth your time. Alright, now I'm going to talk about class changes for a little bit. People really want class changes moving forward, especially in vanilla, and I'm going to explain why I don't think it's a good idea. Despite their best no changes, quote-unquote, efforts, Blizzard has heavily affected the class meta for every single expansion so far, and it's very clear to me that with these recent feral buffs, the devs have absolutely no idea what's going on. With warriors in vanilla benefiting from heroic strike queuing, hunters in TBC benefiting from mouse macro melee weaving, and unholy DKs benefiting from gargoyle snapshotting in Wrath, all of these things are developer-forced changes that were never seen in the original game or on any private server throughout the history of time. And honestly, these forced changes made the meta so ridiculously worse than the game originally was. I don't trust the devs at all to do anything based on their track record. On vanilla and TBC private servers, warlocks would always eventually rise to the top of the meters with more gear, and they were usually able to compete for a top spot on the DPS meters, but we never got to see that content because the heroic strike queuing bug never got fixed. Warriors were on top of the meters for sure on private servers, but rogues were maybe 5% behind them, and with the incentive to bring other classes for gear diversity, it wasn't really that huge of a deal. Other DPS, besides hunters, were very playable. Mouse macros that automate processes in the game have always been against the TOS, but with zero enforcement, we saw this level of degeneracy rise to the top of the meters in TBC. And as a hunter player myself, I really enjoyed the complexity of the rotation, but to call this even a semi-accurate representation of the class from TBC is totally laughable. And the gargoyles. Oh man, the gargoyles. They had scaled with haste and Wrath for sure, but only up to a certain amount because they had globals. There had never been an iteration of Wrath where the gargoyle was completely uncapped and scaled with everything in a snapshotable way. until this release of Classic. Small changes like this matter a huge amount in terms of overall balance and basically determine the meta at the top, which every player will eventually follow. If they had just, you know, fixed the bugs, then we would have seen a much less toxic landscape in terms of class distribution, which we eventually saw them start doing in Wrath of Lich King with this gargoyle thing, but it's just an artificial nerf to combat the artificial buff that never should have existed in the first place. It's not like it's fixed, it's just re-nerfed. But at least the classes are in a good spot right now, and there isn't a class that just gets denied a raise spot entirely. There might be specs, but there isn't a class. The only changes that I'd like to see moving forward, besides fixing bugs, would be changing the developers, or adding more content to previous expansions. Classic Plus is a fantastic idea because it's just everything from the original game, plus more. No one would disagree with it ever, but buffing the ever-living crap out of Rep Paladins and giving them Divine Storm and everyone mounts at level 1 would obviously just completely ruin the game. We already saw this happen in retail, and Wrath really is the beginning of discounting work that's already been done, as they decrease the amount of XP required per level significantly, so the leveling process is kind of a joke in Wrath, whereas in Vanilla it took you a really long time, so all that work that you put in previously now is just worth a lot less, and that feels really bad. Blizzard had an absurd amount of amazing ideas that never got touched because the game was rushed. We know this, it's not a conspiracy theory, they've actually said it. There's tons of low-hanging fruit that can easily be brought into the game for additional content, like the Troll Fortress at the top of Zul'Drak that was supposed to be a raid. I'm not going to sit here and list all the examples because that's probably a whole video on its own, but overall I don't think people realize how much the developers had a negative impact on our experience so far. The bot situation is just completely out of control in a way that Vanilla, TBC, and Wrath had never seen before Classic. They used to make really good money selling gold and leveling characters on private servers because those things were really hard to get. And anyone seen botting for even more than a few hours would be taken out immediately because the devs actually cared about the game. And I'm not saying private server developers were better, they were obviously corrupt, they were making rank 14 characters, they were conjuring gold and selling it themselves, but I would rather deal with that than the inflation that we have in the game now. The point of this video is that the little things matter a lot, and even if the devs don't care about those things, I do. I don't want the game to be bad again. But even if it does go the same way as retail, at least we can always just make another private server and I'll jump on that like Nostalrius, which honestly was a much better experience than Classic. I play the game for a lot of different reasons right now, but I honestly wouldn't recommend it to a new player. I think it's in a pretty good place because it's easy to find people to join together and try to do the obvious goal, which is to clear all the Ulduar hard modes. It's a solid challenge looking right in your face, but a new player trying to gear up has absolutely no options besides getting a credit card when it comes to gearing up, and that's just obviously unacceptable. But overall, if we fixed the bugs and bots and added more content than was originally released, this game would be in a perfect and pristine state. But trying to fill in all the holes that are naturally in the game is just a slippery slope that's going to lead us straight to BFA and all of us quitting the game and just doing something else. I think everyone understands why you'd want to give Hunter Steady Shot in Vanilla, but before you know it, you'll be playing Dragonflight Hunter because that's better, right? That's a better version. The Vanilla version isn't the best one. The best one is the Dragonflight version, right? Am I the only one that sees this? Come on, it's just stupid. Don't let them do this. Don't let them ruin our game again. But yeah, that was actually the video. Leave me a comment, like and subscribe.